My name is Clara Evans. A changed character name. My husband is Michael. After a long period of stress from work and life pressures, we decided we needed a vacation to relax. We wanted to find a quiet place, away from the noisy city. The beach was the perfect choice. To save money, we rented an old beach house in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. A changed location name. It was a wooden house, faded by time, situated on a sand dune, not far from the water's edge. The house looked ordinary, but it had clearly been here for a very long time. It smelled of old wood, the dampness of sea air, and something else, hard to describe. The house was quite isolated, with only a few other houses in the distance. Around us were only sand, sea grass, and the sound of waves crashing. During the day, the air was fresh and pleasant. In the evening, when night fell, it became quiet and a little bit gloomy, mysterious. From the porch, we could look straight out at the vast beach and the dark sea. A little further down the beach, there was a small playground area with a few old swing sets, probably for renters around here. We arrived on a summer afternoon in 2022. The sunset over the sea was beautiful, painting the sky gold, the breath of the sea. The first few days of the vacation passed very peacefully. We walked on the beach, admired the view, enjoyed the fresh air. This old house, though a bit run down, gave us a sense of privacy and comfort. However, I had no idea that this peace was only temporary. And this old beach house, the vast beach in front of it, were hiding a haunting, a tragedy from the sea. The vacation in the old beach house was about to become a terrifying experience that we would never forget. We enjoyed the first few days of our vacation on the beach. The gentle sound of waves, the salty sea breeze, the brilliant golden sun, all brought a sense of relaxation. However, as night fell, the beach became different, pitch black, with only the faint moonlight reflecting on the water and the sound of waves crashing louder, more fiercely. From our old house, we could see the beach. A little further down, I could still vaguely see the shape of the playground area with the old swing sets. The first night passed peacefully, with only the sound of waves. But on the second night, everything began to change. It was around midnight. I was lying in bed, getting ready to sleep. Suddenly, I heard a noise, a creaking sound, the creaking of rusty iron, echoing from the direction of the beach. The sound of a swing set. I sat up quickly. Michael, do you hear that? Michael had also woken up. Hear what, dear? The swing set, I whispered. The swing set from the beach. Michael listened. Yes, in the stillness of the late night, the old swing set was creaking, steadily, as if someone was sitting on it and swinging. The swing set was quite far from our house. And importantly, there was no wind that night. We sat by the window, looking out at the dark sea. The faint moonlight shone down on the playground area in the distance. We saw the swing sets, and one of them was gently swaying. The swing set creaking at midnight. Rhythm on the sand. That couldn't be real, but we both heard it. We both saw it. A shiver ran down our spines. This was not normal. We sat there for a long time, watching the swing set swing by itself in the darkness, listening to the terrifying creaking sound. Finally, the swing set stopped. An eerie silence enveloped the beach again. We went to bed, but our sleep was restless. The question lingered in our minds. Who, or what, made that swing set swing? The haunting from the sea had begun. After the night we heard the swing set at midnight, we both felt uneasy and anxious. Although we tried to be rational, what we had seen and heard was too real to be an illusion. In the following nights, The swing set continued to swing by itself around the same time. From the direction of the beach. It became a terrifying part of the night. A constant reminder of something unusual happening there. My sleep was restless. I had strange dreams. Dreaming of being on the beach at night. Hearing the sound of waves. And feeling a swaying motion. Or the bone-chilling cold of the seawater. It was the fourth night we were at the old beach house. Around 3 a.m., I suddenly woke up, not because of the swing set, because of a very strong feeling of unease. I lay there for a while, listening. There was only the steady sound of waves. I don't know why, but I felt a strange urge to look out at the beach. As if someone was calling me. I slowly got out of bed, quietly walked to the window overlooking the sea. Michael was still sound asleep. I looked outside. The beach was pitch black. The faint moonlight shone down on a part of the sand. And then, I saw, on the sand, a figure. The figure of a girl. She was wearing a white dress. Long, dark hair, hanging down. She was walking on the sand. Walking along the water's edge. And what sent shivers down my spine was, her feet were not touching the ground. She was floating, or gliding on the sand, about a few inches above the surface. The ghostly figure of a girl in a white dress. Feet not touching the ground. Walking on the sand at 3 a.m. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. Cold sweat poured out, drenching my entire body. The hour of the lonely one. This was a sight I would never forget. I saw her face dimly in the darkness. Pale, with eyes that seemed to look straight out at the sea. Full of sadness and loneliness. She wasn't looking towards our house. She just walked along the sand, floating above the ground, like a phantom. I stood there, staring at the terrifying figure on the sand, unable to move. After a while, the figure of the girl in the white dress gradually faded, as if dissolving into the sea mist, then disappeared completely. I slumped to the floor, trembling all over. Michael was still sound asleep, completely unaware of what I had just witnessed. What I had just seen was too real, too terrifying. The spirit of the girl in the white dress, feet not touching the ground. She was on the beach, right near our house. The haunting from the sea had manifested in the clearest and most terrifying way. And I knew that this vacation would no longer be a vacation. After the night I saw the spirit of the girl in the white dress on the sand. Fear enveloped me. I couldn't talk to Michael immediately about what I had seen. I was afraid he wouldn't believe me, or would worry, but I knew it was real. That spirit was real. The haunted swing set was real. In the following days, the atmosphere in the old beach house became heavier. Even though it was sunny outside, inside, I felt a gloominess, a coldness. The strange signs in the house began to become more apparent. The noises weren't just the swing set from a distance anymore. Sometimes, I heard sounds like water dripping somewhere in the house. Or something like a gasp, a labored breath. The feeling of being watched became more intense. I felt as if the girl in the white dress was in the house with us. Especially when near windows overlooking the sea. Or when I was alone in a room. The unusual cold in some spots in the house now sent shivers down my spine every time I stepped there. As if the cold breath of the sea, or of the spirit, was lurking in the house. I started seeing fleeting shadows more often. Blurry white or gray figures in the corner of my eye. Once, when looking in the bathroom mirror, just for a split second, I saw the reflection of a pale face. Long hair, looking straight at me from behind. Michael noticed the change in me. I became quieter, more anxious, easily startled. Finally, I decided to tell Michael about what I had seen at 3 a.m. on the sand. I described in detail the figure of the girl in the white dress. Her feet not touching the ground. Walking on the sand. Michael was initially very shocked and disbelieving. He tried to find a logical explanation. Perhaps it was the light playing tricks? Perhaps it was an illusion due to stress? But when I described her eyes and the bone-chilling coldness, he became more serious. He had also heard the swing set swinging by itself every night. Cold breath from the sea seemed to have entered our house. And the haunting wasn't confined to the swing set or the sand. It was in this house. With us. Our vacation was completely ruined. The strange phenomena in the old beach house became increasingly terrifying. Especially after I saw the spirit of the girl in the white dress on the sand. Michael, although initially skeptical, now also felt the abnormality and fear. We knew that something terrible had happened here. Not just a normal ghost story. This seemingly peaceful sea was hiding a dark secret. We started researching the history of this area. About the old house we were renting. About the beach and that swing set. We searched on local history websites. Old news archives. Asked longtime local residents, although they rarely talked about old stories. The search was difficult, but we were determined. Fear motivated us to know why these things were happening to us. Why the spirit from the park seemed to be affecting our house. And then, we found some clues. Some forgotten old stories. About 25 years ago, within the time frame you requested, a terrible tragedy occurred on this beach. Right near where our house is standing now. A family was on vacation here. They had a young daughter. Named Sarah. A changed name. About 6 years old. One evening, while her parents weren't paying attention, Sarah wandered off playing alone near the water's edge. There was a terrible accident involving the strong currents of the sea. Or some other tragic incident. Sarah drowned. Her body was found a few days later. Washed ashore on the sand. The haunting detail is that people said on the day she went missing, she was wearing a white dress. Where the waves stopped, that is where the tragedy happened. The spirit of the girl in the white dress on the sand. That is Sarah. The spirit of the little girl is bound to the place where she drowned. To this beach. The old swing set was perhaps her favorite swing set. Where she used to play. Her spirit still wants to play. Still wants to swing. Truth from the sea has been revealed. An old tragedy. A tragic death of a child. The fear within us was now mixed with deep pity for her fate. But fear still prevailed. The girl's spirit wasn't just on the sand. It had entered our house. The strange noises. The feeling of being watched. The unusual cold. The reflection in the mirror. All were manifestations of Sarah's spirit. Trapped in pain and loneliness. We lived in extreme fear. The relaxing vacation had turned into a nightmare. And we knew we couldn't stay here for another night. The truth about little Sarah's tragic drowning sent shivers down our spines. Our vacation had turned into a nightmare. The old beach house was no longer a place for relaxation. It was a place where a tormented spirit was lurking. We decided to leave immediately. We couldn't stay for another second. The next morning, we quickly packed our bags. Our minds focused only on getting out of that place as fast as possible. We didn't dare look back at the beach. Didn't dare look back at the swing set in the distance. Didn't dare look back at the old house. We drove away, leaving the Outer Banks, North Carolina, leaving the coastal road, where the waves still crashed relentlessly. But the haunting did not end when we left. In the nights that followed, even when we were at home, hundreds of miles from the sea, I still had dreams about the beach, about little Sarah, about the swing set. I still felt the unusual coldness. The feeling of being watched when I was alone. Perhaps Sarah's spirit followed us. Or perhaps the fear had become so deeply ingrained in my mind that it created illusions. But the truth about the haunted swing set on the beach, the story of the mother and daughter's tragedy, and my horrifying experiences in the nearby house, it was all real. The unending waves, like my haunting, it never stops. The footprints on the sand of the old tragedy will forever be there. A reminder of a lonely spirit that is trapped. The old beach house is probably still haunted. The swing set probably still swings by itself at midnight. And the spirit of little Sarah probably still walks on the sand at 3 a.m. Her feet not touching the ground. Looking for something. Our story is a warning. Be careful about where you travel. Especially places that seem peaceful like the beach. And places with tragic histories. You never know what tragedy has happened there. And what spirits are still trapped, trying to express their pain. My name is Mia Chen. A changed character name. My life was going through a difficult phase. After ending a long-term relationship and facing financial pressures, I needed a new place to live. Quiet and most importantly, affordable. When I found an old house for rent at a reasonable price in a suburban area of Chicago, Illinois, I thought I was lucky. The house wasn't new, looked a bit run down, but it was located in a rather quiet neighborhood, near a large public park called Foster Park. A changed name. Before moving in, I did some research about the area. I heard about Foster Park, and a strange story related to a swing set there. Initially, I didn't believe it much. But the more I read, the more people I found talking about seeing that swing set move by itself at night. Even without wind, there were even recorded police reports regarding unexplained phenomena in the area of the swing set during late hours of the night. The swing set swings by itself at midnight in the park near the house. A true horror story, confirmed by many witnesses and even the police. This made me both curious and a little uneasy. But I was a practical person. I thought there must be a logical explanation. The house I rented wasn't right next to the park, but only a few blocks away. From the window of my second-floor bedroom, I could see a part of the park in the distance, and faintly see the area that might be the playground. The house had an old smell. The smell of peeling paint and dust. The light inside was quite dim. Even during the day, noises from outside, like cars or people talking in the distance, were swallowed by the sounds of the house itself, the creaking floorboards, the sound of water in old pipes, the cracking of wood. I moved in on a late spring afternoon in 2024. The air was a bit damp and chilly. I felt lonely and lost, but also hoped that this new place would bring the peace I needed. Swaying rhythm from the park. I didn't know that the true ghost story about that swing set wasn't limited to the park's boundaries. And the peace I sought was about to be broken by strange things, originating from the ghost from that public place. The first few days in the new house passed quite normally. I spent time arranging furniture, getting used to the surroundings. Loneliness was still a companion, but I had my own space to cope. However, after about a week, I started noticing things unusual. Small sounds in the house that I couldn't explain. The sound of a door gently opening, closing when there was no draft. The sound of very light footsteps, like someone walking in the living room when I was upstairs. I tried to ignore them. It's an old house. It must be the wood settling, or wind blowing through cracks. But the sounds became more frequent. Sometimes, I heard small objects being moved somewhere in the house. A very faint clinking sound. I started feeling as if someone was in the house with me. A feeling of being watched. Especially when I was alone at night. When I turned around suddenly, I felt as if I saw a shadow flit by in the corner of my eye. But when I looked closely, there was nothing there. The temperature in some areas of the house suddenly dropped noticeably, as if there was an unusual cold draft. That cold sent shivers down my spine, even if only for a moment. My dreams also became strange. I dreamed of being in a dark place, hearing a child crying, and feeling a swaying motion. The dreams weren't clear, but they left me feeling restless and anxious upon waking. Uninvited guest. This house is not just mine. Something else is here. At first, I thought these phenomena were due to stress and my loneliness. I was in a strange place. Alone. After a difficult period. Perhaps my mental state wasn't stable. But the sounds, the feeling of being watched, the unusual cold, it was all too real to be imagination. I started spending more time looking out towards the park from my bedroom window. I wondered, could these things be related to the story of the haunted swing set in Foster Park? Swaying rhythm from the park was still a story lingering in my mind. And the first signs in the house were making me believe that something supernatural was at work here. The strange phenomena in the house became more pronounced. The footsteps were no longer light. Sometimes they sounded like someone running upstairs. Objects didn't just move. Once, a cup on the counter fell to the floor by itself, shattering. The feeling of being watched was ever present, making it impossible for me to relax. The unusual cold in some spots in the house was now bone-chillingly cold, as if something invisible was condensing there. I knew this wasn't just stress or imagination anymore. Something supernatural was happening in this house. And I started to feel a strange connection to Foster Park. The noises in the house seemed to happen frequently in the late hours. Around 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., the hour when the swing set in the park was rumored to swing by itself. Sometimes, in the absolute silence of the night, I heard something echoing from the direction of the park. Unclear, but it sounded like a child crying. I started staying up later, sitting by my bedroom window, looking towards the park. It was quite far. In the darkness, I could only vaguely see the playground area. Then one night, around midnight, in absolute silence, I heard a creaking sound, the creaking of rusty iron. Very faint, echoing from the direction of the park. The sound of the swing set. The swing set from afar. I froze. That was the sound of the haunted swing set everyone talked about. And I heard it, even from my house. The phenomena in the house, and the sound of the swing set from the park. Were they somehow connected? My fear doubled. It wasn't just a haunting in the house, but a connection to a haunted public place. A place whose ghost story had been confirmed by the police. I felt as if there was an invisible thread pulling the spirit from the park towards my house. My dreams also changed. Now, I dreamed of sitting on a swing set, swaying in the darkness, and hearing crying near my ear. I couldn't ignore this connection any longer. My house, and Foster Park, seemed to be sharing a common haunting. The connection between the strange phenomena in my house and the story of the haunted swing set in Foster Park became increasingly clear and terrifying. I decided I had to find out the truth behind that tragedy. I spent more time researching the history of Foster Park. I searched online local news archives, reread old articles, looked for police reports, if publicly accessible, and searched for stories shared on forums about haunted places in Chicago. The search was difficult, but I was determined. Fear motivated me to know why these things were happening to me. why the spirit from the park seemed to be affecting my house. And then, I found the horrifying explanation. About 20 years ago, within the time frame you requested, a terrible tragedy occurred right in Foster Park. Specifically in the playground area, where the old swing set was. A young woman, named Emily Carter, a changed name, used to bring her small daughter, named Lily, a changed name, to the park to play on that swing set. They were a small family, whose life wasn't easy. One evening, it was already dusk. Emily and Lily were playing on the swing set. According to accounts gathered from old reports and rumors, a horrifying incident occurred. It could have been a case of domestic violence, an outside attack, or some other tragic event. But the result was that Emily and Lily died brutally right in the area of the swing set. The details were vague, but it seemed their deaths were directly related to the swing set, or happened right at its base. Tragedy under the trees. The truth from the past had been revealed. The spirits of Emily and Lily were bound to the place where they died in the most tragic way. The swing set was a physical object. Their connection to this world. That's why the swing set swings by itself every night. It's Lily's spirit still wanting to play. Or Emily's spirit holding her daughter, swinging on the swing set they loved. The horrifying explanation. And it explained why I heard child's crying. Why I dreamed of being swayed. Why supernatural phenomena were happening in my house. Especially in the late hours. Perhaps, their spirits weren't just bound to the park. Perhaps, their pain and haunting had spread out, reaching nearby houses, seeking another place to dwell. Or perhaps, the child's spirit just wanted to play, and it sought out nearby houses, where there were living people. People who could hear its cry. People who could feel its presence. The horrifying explanation sent shivers down my spine, but also brought a sense of gloom and sadness. Fear didn't decrease. It intensified when I learned about the true tragedy. Swaying rhythm from the park wasn't just a ghost story to be told. It was the truth, a tragedy that still existed. And my house had unintentionally become a part of that tragedy. The truth about the tragedy of Emily and Lily sent shivers down my spine, but also brought a gloomy understanding. I knew why my house was haunted. It was located near Foster Park, where their pain and death occurred, and their spirits had spread. Reaching here, the phenomena in the house became more and more intense. The footsteps upstairs now sounded like frantic running. Objects didn't just fall once. The lamp in the living room automatically swayed back and forth, exactly like the rhythm of the swing set. The feeling of being watched was constant. Sometimes, when I was alone in the room, I felt as if someone was standing right behind my back, their cold breath on my neck. The unusual cold in certain fixed spots in the house now made me afraid to step into those areas. I started seeing blurry, grayish figures flit by in the corner of my eye more often, especially at the end of the hallway or near the windows. And the most terrifying thing was what I saw in the mirror. The child's face, distorted by fear or pain, in the mirror was now clearer. Sometimes, I even saw the reflection of the swing set in the mirror. Even though the swing set wasn't in my house, the presence in the house, the spirit from the park had entered my house. It could be the child's spirit, Lily, seeking a place to play, or looking for her mother. Or it could be Emily's spirit, looking for her daughter, or trapped in pain and anger. I lived in extreme fear. My peaceful house had become a haunted place. I didn't know what to do. I thought about running away, but I didn't have enough money to move immediately. And I was also afraid that this haunting would follow me wherever I went. One night, Around 1 a.m., I was huddled in the living room, not daring to turn off the lights. I heard a noise from the kitchen. A very faint clinking sound. Then a sound like someone rolling on the floor. I looked towards the kitchen, my heart pounding. And then, at the end of the hallway leading into the kitchen, in the dim light, I saw eyes from the corner. Two small, white or gray specks of light, shimmering in the darkness, like the eyes of a child. And I felt a sadness, a loneliness, and an extreme fear. In that moment, I knew it was Lily, the spirit of the little girl from the park. It had entered my house. Fear enveloped me. I let out a small scream. Backing away, the image lingered for a moment, then disappeared into the darkness. But I knew it had been there. The spirit of the little girl from the haunted swing set had entered my house. The night I saw the eyes of the little girl in the darkness at the end of the kitchen hallway was the peak of horror. The truth about the tragedy of Emily and Lily was confirmed by the presence of the child's spirit right inside my house. I couldn't stay in that house for another day. The fear had completely paralyzed me. I called my friends and family, told them everything that had happened, providing the evidence of the old stories about the park and my own experiences. They were worried about me, although they might not have fully believed in ghost stories. I quickly packed only the most essential things and left that house the very next morning. I didn't dare look back. I just wanted to go far away. As quickly as possible, I found temporary accommodation in another city, hundreds of miles away from Chicago and Foster Park. I tried to start my life over. But the unending sway, the haunting still followed me. I still had dreams about the swing set, about the child, about the crying. I still felt the unusual coldness, the feeling of being watched when I was alone. I don't know if the spirits of Emily and Lily followed me, or if the fear had become so deeply ingrained in my mind that it created illusions. But the truth about the haunted swing set in Foster Park, the story of the tragedy of the mother and daughter, and my horrifying experiences in the nearby house, it was all real. I know that there are spirits who are bound to the places where they suffered ultimate pain and died. They cannot find peace. They relive their tragedy, seek help, or simply exist in the unseen realm. Foster Park and that old house are probably still haunted. The swing set still swings by itself at midnight. And perhaps, Lily's spirit still wanders, trying to reach nearby houses, haunting forever. It's not just a story about a haunted place. It's a story about how fear and tragedy from the past can spread, affecting the lives of those who unintentionally step into its sphere of influence. I will never feel completely safe again. I always carry the fear that that blurry figure, those eyes of the child, could appear at any moment, anywhere. My name is Alex Finch. A changed character name. My life had just gone through a major shock. After an exhausting divorce, I decided to leave everything behind, looking for a place far away to start over. When I learned I inherited an old house from a distant relative in rural Oregon, I thought it was the perfect opportunity. A quiet, secluded place, far enough for me to forget my troubles, and private enough to face my loneliness and anxiety about the future. The house was located in a rather remote area, surrounded by vast fields and the edge of a forest in the distance. From the outside, the house looked ordinary, an old-style architecture with faded wooden walls, a wide porch, and an old tiled roof. It wasn't exactly beautiful, but it wasn't scary either. Just old and a bit isolated. When I first stepped into the house, I felt an old, heavy atmosphere enveloping me. There was a smell of dampness, old decaying wood, and something indescribable, like the smell of time and untold stories. The light inside was quite dim, even during the day, due to the small windows and old curtains. The backyard was quite large, overgrown with weeds, and in the middle of the backyard, there was an old swing set. The swing set was made of wrought iron, already rusty, with two chains holding a faded wooden plank. It looked as if it had been there for a very long time. Although old, it still stood firm, like a relic from the past. I decided to keep the swing set. I thought, perhaps one day, I would have grandchildren and they would play here. Or simply, it was an interesting detail, adding a bit of nostalgic charm to the yard. The first few days in the new house passed quite quietly. I spent time cleaning and arranging furniture. Loneliness was still a companion, but at least, I had my own space to reflect. Shadows from the past. I had no idea that this old house, and especially the swing set in the backyard, were carrying shadows from a terrifying past. And my new beginning here was about to be stained with horror. I gradually got used to the slow pace of life in rural Oregon. During the day, I did housework, explored the surroundings. In the evening, I often sat in the living room, reading or watching TV. Loneliness was still there, but I was learning to face it. This old house had its own unique sounds. The floorboards creaked when I walked. The wood expanded at night. I considered it normal for an old house. However, after about a week, I started noticing things, more subtle. Small sounds that I only heard when I was alone. In the absolute stillness of late night. Sometimes, I heard a very faint clinking sound from the kitchen, like small objects falling, but when I went to check, there was nothing there. Once, I left my keys on the table. But the next morning, they were in a different position on the table, as if someone had moved them slightly. I told myself, I must be absent-minded. I started feeling as if someone was in the house with me. A feeling of being watched. Sometimes, when I turned around suddenly, I felt as if I saw a shadow flit by in the corner of my eye. But when I looked closely, there was nothing there. In certain specific areas of the house, like at the end of the hallway leading to the backyard, or near the window overlooking the swing set, I felt a sudden drop in temperature, as if there was an invisible cold draft. That cold sent shivers down my spine, even if only for a moment. I also started having strange dreams. Vague, unclear dreams, but always involving a child. And something related to sounds or movement. I woke up feeling restless, anxious, but couldn't remember the details of the dreams clearly. These subtle signs made me wonder. Stress? Or was loneliness making me imagine things? I tried to be rational, attributing it to the consequences of living alone in an old house in a remote area. But those creaking sounds in the night, those subtle signs, increasingly made me feel uneasy. And I knew that the superficial piece of this old house was hiding something deeper. Shadows from the past were slowly manifesting. The subtle signs gradually became more frequent and harder to ignore. The feeling of being watched intensified, especially when I was near windows or walking past the hallway leading to the backyard. The unusual cold in some areas of the house lasted longer. Dreams about the child and strange noises also recurred, although still vague. And then, the focus of my attention shifted to the swing set in the backyard. It was a quiet night. No wind. I was sitting in the living room, reading. The clock showed around 11 p.m. Suddenly, I heard a sound from the backyard. The creaking of rusty iron. A steady creaking sound, like the sound of a swing set swaying. I held my breath and listened. Yes, The old swing set was creaking, as if someone was sitting on it and swinging, swaying rhythm in the darkness. That couldn't be happening. There was no wind. The backyard was empty. I slowly stood up and walked towards the window overlooking the backyard. The faint light from inside the house wasn't enough to illuminate the entire yard, but I could clearly see the swing set. In the darkness, the swing set was gently swaying back and forth. Slowly, steadily. There was no one sitting on it. Only the swing set moving by itself. A chill ran down my spine. My hands trembled as I touched the cold window frame. I stood there, staring at the self-swinging swing set, unable to believe what I was seeing. In the following nights, it happened again. Around 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., the swing set in the backyard would start swinging by itself. Sometimes gently, sometimes a little stronger. The creaking sound of rusty iron had become a terrifying part of the night. The small noises in the house, the feeling of being watched, the unusual cold, all now seemed to revolve around that swing set. I started spending more time looking out into the backyard, waiting for the moment the swing set would start swaying. Curiosity mixed with fear. I knew that what I was witnessing wasn't an illusion. The swing set was moving by itself, swaying rhythm in the darkness. Who was sitting on it? Or what was making it sway? This old house was revealing its terrifying secret, and my mind was gradually being consumed by that haunting. The self-swinging swing set every night became my biggest haunting. I couldn't sleep peacefully. Every creaking sound from the backyard made me jump awake, my heart pounding. Other strange phenomena in the house also escalated. The noises were no longer just small clinking sounds. Sometimes, I heard clear footsteps on the floor upstairs, even though I was downstairs and the upstairs was empty. Or the sound of doors gently opening, closing. The feeling of being watched became more intense. I felt as if someone was standing right behind my back. Once, while doing dishes in the kitchen, I suddenly turned around and saw a black shadow quickly flit by at the end of the hallway. The unusual cold in certain fixed spots in the house became even colder. As if something was frozen there. I started seeing shadows flit by in the corner of my eye more often. Blurry, grayish figures, disappearing the moment I tried to look directly at them. And the most terrifying thing was what I saw in the mirror. Sometimes, when looking in the bathroom or bedroom mirror, I felt as if my reflection was slightly off. Once, just for a split second, I saw the image of another face flit by behind me in the mirror. A child's face, distorted by fear or pain. Restless night. This old house did not give me the peace I sought. It was active, revealing its terror. I started doubting myself. Was all of this just due to post-divorce stress, loneliness, or living in this remote area? Was I going crazy? But the creaking sound of the swing set every night, the noises in the house, the unusual cold, the fleeting shadows, and especially the eyes in the mirror. It was all too real to be a hallucination. I knew that something evil or tormented was in this house, and it seemed to be related to the swing set in the backyard. Swaying rhythm in the darkness continued every night, like a constant reminder of that terrifying presence. I felt as if I was living in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to escape. Fear and confusion urged me to find out about the history of this house. I couldn't continue living in this uncertainty any longer. I started searching, asking the nearest neighbors, although they lived quite far. Searching online news archives of the county. Sifting through old documents I found in the house. Like old newspapers under the attic floor. The search was difficult, as this was a remote rural area and information wasn't well documented. But I persevered. And then, I found a small clue. In an old local newspaper. I found a short article from about 30 years ago, within the time frame you requested. The article mentioned a regrettable incident that happened in this area, related to a family living in an old house near the forest edge. The details were very vague, but it mentioned an accident involving a child and the backyard. The article didn't explicitly state what happened, just that it was a tragic accident, but it was enough to send shivers down my spine. A child, the backyard, the old house. I returned to the house, looked out into the backyard, looked at the old swing set. That clue, however small, connected the strange phenomena to a real tragedy. That evening, around midnight, the swing set started swinging again, more violently than ever before. The creaking of rusty iron echoed in the silence of the night. Sounding so mournful, I stood by the window, looking out into the backyard, my heart pounding, and then, I saw, on the swing set, a figure, not just a fleeting shadow or reflection in the mirror anymore. It was the blurry figure of a child. The child sat on the wooden plank, its body slightly hunched forward. Its form was transparent, flickering, as if made of moonlight and mist. But I saw clearly, the child sitting on the swing, and the swing was still swaying, as if the child was playing by itself. The creaking sound of the swing set, now, sounded like screams from the past. I was fixated on that sight, frozen in fear. The child, the spirit of the child, it was there. On the swing set, I felt the sadness, the loneliness, and an indescribable pain emanating from that small figure. And then, in that moment, the image from my dreams, the clue from the old newspaper, and the sight before my eyes, all connected. A tragic accident of a child in the backyard. The tragic death had bound the child's spirit to this place, to this swing set. Its presence, the sounds, the cold, the eyes in the mirror, all were manifestations of the child's spirit. Trapped in pain, I stood there, watching the child swing in the darkness, tears streaming down my face from fear and pity. The swing set of the invisible one. It wasn't a prank, it was the truth, an old tragedy replaying its pain. Every night on the swing set. And I, Alex Finch, had become the witness. After the night I saw the child's figure on the swing set, I knew I couldn't stay in that house any longer. The fear had exceeded my limit. The initial loneliness and anxiety were now overwhelmed by sheer horror. I quickly packed my belongings. Every small noise in the house made me jump. Every time I looked out into the backyard, I felt as if someone was looking back at me from the empty swing set. I hadn't slept for days. My body was exhausted. My mind was broken. But I couldn't stop. I had to leave this place. One early morning, as dawn was breaking and a light fog hung in the air, I loaded my car. I didn't dare look back at the house. Didn't dare look back at the swing set in the backyard. I drove away. Leaving the remote rural road of Oregon. Leaving the old house. But the haunting did not leave with me. The image of the child on the swing set. The creaking of the rusty iron. The mournful cry I heard in my dreams. All remained vivid in my mind. Even when I was in a strange, safe place, I still felt an unusual coldness. A feeling of being watched when alone in a room. The end of the new beginning. I came to the old house to start over. But the end result was an unforgettable haunting. I don't know if the child's spirit will ever find peace. I hope so. But I also know that souls bound by pain and tragedy are hard to release. Perhaps it is still there, on the swing set in the backyard of that old house in Oregon. Forever swaying in the darkness. Waiting for the next witness. My story does not have a happy ending. The truth about the ghost child on the swing set is still there. An unanswered mystery. A lingering haunting. It is a reminder that tragedies that happened in the past leave scars not only on the physical world, but also on the unseen realm. And sometimes, those scars come alive, seeking to express their suffering to those who unintentionally step into their world. If you enjoyed true horror stories, or stories based on accounts and mysterious locations, like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.